So, what if I told you that the source of your personal power, your real magnetism, has almost nothing to do with what you see in the mirror? Today, we're going to peel back the layers of the human mind to find out what truly makes a person compelling. We're going way beyond just superficial charm to uncover the real engine of your personality. Okay, so let's start by drawing a really clear line in the sand. Our society, it tends to celebrate these temporary things: physical beauty, a sweet sounding voice, a polished look. But look at this. That stuff is fleeting. Real, lasting strength, that's built on a totally different foundation. We're talking about character, genuine enthusiasm, and that deep inner harmony. That's the stuff that sticks around. And here's our game plan for how we're going to explore this. First, we'll expose why outward beauty is really just an illusion. Then, we're going to tap into what I like to call your inner electricity. After that, we'll get into the wild idea that you're actually a committee of selves, see what happens when there's a war inside, and finally, figure out how to forge that inner peace that leads to some serious power. All right, first up, let's start by just tearing down a myth that so many of us buy into. This idea that our value and our magnetism are all tied up in how we look. There's this powerful quote that just nails it. Physical beauty is a mirage and a labyrinth. Think about that. It's an illusion that can totally trap you, right? Making you chase something that, by its very nature, is designed to fade away. And we've all seen this in real life. Think about a pop star who built their entire career on their youthful looks or a certain kind of voice. As time does its thing and changes those qualities, their influence starts to fade. It just goes to show that any power built only on the physical is basically built on quicksand. Okay, so if outward charm isn't the real deal, then what is? Well, that brings us to the true source of power, this internal engine that doesn't just fade, but can actually get stronger and stronger over time. This leads us to this really incredible concept called utsa. Now, we often translate it as enthusiasm, but honestly, that word doesn't even begin to cover it. It's so much more. Think of it as your vital life force, the actual fundamental electricity that animates your entire being. And I love this analogy because it just makes it so clear. Your utsa, your life force, that's the power plant. All your other abilities, your smarts, your skills, your physical strength, those are just the appliances, right? And without a fully charged power plant, even the fanciest gadgets are completely useless. And the results of this are massive. This isn't just about, feeling good. As you can see right here, the level of your inner energy directly determines what you get out of life. High utsa is the fuel for action, for drive, for success. But when it's low, well, that's when we get stuck in procrastination and doubt. It's literally the difference between thriving and just getting by. All right, now we're going to dive into a pretty radical idea from the world of psychology that might just change how you see yourself forever. It's this theory that you are not one single person. It sounds like such a simple question, doesn't it? Who is really in charge of you? But hang on. If you really pause and think about it, the answer gets fuzzy. Who's making that final call inside your head? Is it the part of you that wants to be healthy, or is it the part that's already reaching for that second slice of pizza? Who wins that fight? And this is not just some philosophical thought experiment. A pioneering psychologist, Morton Prince, he actually suggested that our minds are less like a single king ruling a kingdom and way more like a committee room, just packed with different personalities, and they're all fighting for the microphone. And just think for a second about who's sitting at your committee table. You've got your ordinary, just getting through the day self. But sitting right next to it, maybe there's a saintly self who wants to do good, a devilish self that just wants what it wants now, a starry-eyed idealist, and of course that loud inner critic. And every single one of them has its own agenda. So, what happens when this inner committee is just in a state of constant bickering and conflict? Well, it leads to something that you can only really describe as a war within yourself. And we can see this play out in a really famous psychological case. Yeah, to make this really concrete, Morton Prince documented the case of a woman. He gave her the name Magnuaro, and her life was basically a picture of pure torment because she was caught in the constant crossfire between three of her own competing personalities. Look at this. This slide just lays out the devastating cycle of self-sabotage she went through. Her ordinary self would do something simple, like put her keys in a safe spot. But then another part of her, this devil self, who knew exactly what the first one did, would deliberately move them. The result was a life of just constant confusion and misery, all orchestrated by her own fractured mind. And this brings us to a fundamental truth. If this inner war leads to nothing but chaos, then the only real path to lasting power has to be through forging inner peace. And believe it or not, this is an ancient idea. In Hindu mythology, they describe this exact inner conflict as the Deva Asura Sangram, this epic war fought between the gods, representing our higher self, and the demons, representing our lower instincts. And the whole battlefield is our own mind. When you look at it this way, the choice is pretty clear, right? On one side, inner conflict just creates chaos, stagnation, and weakness. But when you can get these parts to form an alliance, that's when you unlock harmony, immense power, and what the old myths called the 14 divine gems, which is a metaphor for all the incredible rewards that come from inner unity. And the moral of that ancient story is just so profound. When the gods and the demons, these total opposites inside us, finally stopped fighting and decided to work together on one single goal, they achieved something that was totally impossible for either of them to do alone. They unlocked incredible treasures. And that, right there, brings us to the ultimate takeaway from all of this. As the quote says, the path to a truly superior and graceful personality, it isn't found in your mirror. It's forged by creating unity among all those different selves living inside you. So the real question isn't just who you are, it's actually a choice you get to make moment to moment. Among all those voices in your inner committee, the saint, the devil, the critic, the dreamer, which one of those selves will you choose to empower today? All right, today we're diving into something pretty incredible. We're talking about a hidden power that's inside every single one of us. A power that, when you unlock it, can literally defy what we think is possible. So how is this even possible? Let's kick things off with a real head-scratcher, a mystery that seems to just break all the rules of physics and biology. I mean, how can a person survive something that, well, should be totally unsurvivable? Okay, get this. This is a true story. New York City. A 2-year-old boy falls 15 stories from a building. 15. The impact should have been, instant. And yet, somehow, against all logic, he's survived. This isn't just some crazy news headline. It's a clue, a really big one. Now, a story like that, it's easy to just write it off as a 1 in a billion fluke, right? A miracle. But what if it's not? What if it's actually a powerful example of some kind of force that kicks in when our will to live just refuses to back down? Because these kinds of stories, these tales of impossible survival, they're not just isolated incidents. You find them all over the world, throughout history. They aren't just flukes. They're these incredible glimpses into a deep and honestly a usually untapped human capacity we all have. So, what is this power? What are we talking about here? Well, some have identified it as a kind of hidden life force, the very engine that can make these unbelievable feats of survival actually happen. It actually has a name, Jivani Shakti. Now, that translates to something like an innate life force. Think of it as this powerful internal will to live that is basically hardwired into our DNA. It's not something you have to go out and get, it's something you already have. So, okay, how does this force actually show up in the real world? Well, picture this. A pilot's plane goes down in the middle of the ocean. He has to jump from the burning wreck, he's injured, and he's thrown into this vast cold water. But that Jivani Shakti, it just kicks in, and he swims nonstop for 12 straight hours until he hits shore. The doctors who treated him were just stunned. They couldn't believe he survived. Or get this story from Portland. An 8-year-old boy is accidentally crushed by a massive 3-ton engine. The damage to his body was, well, it was catastrophic. Medically speaking, there was no way he should have made it. But that same life force, it just wouldn't let go, and somehow he pulled through. You see, the really crucial point here is that this power isn't coming from somewhere else. It kind of reminds you of that old saying, God helps those who help themselves. But the deeper meaning isn't about just trying hard. It's that our greatest resource, our greatest strength, is the one that's already inside us. It's our own innate potential. And look, this isn't just about surviving freak accidents. This life force also lets the human body push its physical limits in ways that are just astounding. And we're not just talking about stories here. We're talking about scientifically documented proof. I mean, our bodies have this incredible range, right? We can adapt to scorching hot temperatures, and we can survive in freezing cold for a really long time. This isn't just about being tough. It's about a super sophisticated internal system that's designed from the ground up for one thing: survival. So, just how hot can we take it? Well, in experiments by Dr. Craig Taylor over at the University of California, they showed that the human body can withstand 150 degrees Celsius, that's 302 Fahrenheit, for several minutes. I mean, to put that in perspective for you, water boils at 100 Celsius. It's absolutely wild. And this incredible resilience, it works from the inside out too. There's a documented case of a patient in Brooklyn who survived a body fever of 111 degrees Fahrenheit. That's 44 Celsius. Doctors were absolutely certain it would be fatal, but the patient's internal life force fought back, and believe it or not, they made a full recovery. This power even extends to enduring extreme deprivation. Take Terence MacSweeney, a leader in the Irish independence movement. He survived a hunger strike for an incredible 74 days. 74 days without food, that's a will that just pushed the known limits of what we thought was possible for human starvation. So, when you put all this evidence together, it points to the human body being this almost superhuman machine. And that leads to a really big question, a critical one. If we're all capable of this stuff, why do we so often feel so powerless? Yeah, why do we struggle with anxiety, with all this internal conflict, and just feeling weak in our daily lives when we supposedly have this huge reservoir of strength just sitting inside of us? What's the disconnect here? What's going on? Well, a lot of deep thinkers, from Freud to Jung, have pointed to this fundamental conflict that's going on inside all of us. On one hand, you have your conscious self, your ideals, the person you want to be, the person you show the world. And then on the other hand, there's our unconscious self, all our hidden desires, our cravings, those subconscious impulses. And here's the problem. When what we say we believe, our ideals, are constantly at war with what we secretly want, our personality gets fragmented. It's like we're being pulled in two different directions. And that internal battle, it is exhausting. It's like a massive energy leak that just drains our vitality and blocks us from ever tapping into that deep life force. Okay, but it's not all bad news. There is a solution. And the path to unlocking this power isn't about finding something new or adding something to yourself. It's about integrating the parts of you that are already there. It's about becoming whole. You see, when who you are on the inside, what you truly think and feel, aligns perfectly with who you are on the outside, what you say and do, that energy leak just stops. The conflict ends. And that's when the extraordinary power of Jivani Shakti is finally unlocked. And the path to getting there is actually a pretty clear three-step process of integration. Step 1 is thought. Unify your internal thinking. You've got to resolve those inner conflicts. Step 2 is speech. Align what you say with what you genuinely think. No more saying one thing and believing another. And then step 3 is action. Make sure that what you do is a direct reflection of your unified thoughts and words. So you see, true unshakable strength, it doesn't come from how strong you are physically or what's happening around you. It comes from the profound power of an integrated self, a state where your thoughts, your words, and your actions are all moving in perfect harmony, as one. So all those stories of impossible survival we talked about, they aren't just weird flukes. They're demonstrations of a potential that lies dormant in every single one of us, just waiting to be integrated and unleashed. So the only real question left is, how are you going to unlock yours?
All right, let's jump right in. We're going to tackle a really big question today. What's the real difference between who you are on the inside and the person that everyone else sees on the outside?
So let's just put it out there. Who are you, really? And I don't mean your name or what you do for a living. I mean, who are you at your absolute core? We're going to get to the bottom of this by looking at two really powerful and honestly often confused ideas.
Yep. Character and personality. You know, we throw these words around all the time, often like they're the same thing, but the material we're looking at today draws a really sharp line between them. The easiest way to think about it, character is your hidden internal engine, the thing that actually makes you go. Personality, on the other hand, is the shiny, polished car body that everyone gets to see.
Okay, so let's start with the foundation, right? The truth within. According to this way of thinking, this is where it all begins, with our character.
And what's so cool here is how character is defined. It's not just some static list of traits, like ticking off boxes for honest or brave. Nope, it's described as a dynamic, internal flow. Think of it like a constant current of your thoughts, your beliefs, your principles, and that current is what energizes every single thing you do. And this slide just lays that flow out perfectly. See, it all kicks off with our thoughts.
They create that initial spark of energy. But, and this is key, it's our core beliefs that really get that energy moving through our system, kind of like blood pumping through our veins. And the result? Well, that energy has to go somewhere, right? It just bursts out as behavior for the whole world to see.
So here's the bottom line. A thought that you genuinely believe in, well, it just can't stay hidden. It stops being this quiet, private idea and becomes this unstoppable force that demands to be expressed through your actions. Your inner world will always find a way out.
All right, so if our inner character is the cause, what's the effect? Well, it's our behavior. And this is where personality finally steps onto the stage, acting as the ultimate proof of what's really cooking inside. You see, personality isn't some separate thing you just put on. According to this view, it's the direct external expression of your character. It's the big reveal of your inner world. To put it simply, your actions are basically broadcasting the truth of who you really are, whether you like it or not.
But what happens when there's a disconnect? You know, when we try to project a personality that doesn't actually match our true character. The source has a word for that, hypocrisy. And it's basically a fragile act of fooling ourselves. It's like wearing a mask. And that thin, brittle mask can only hide the truth for so long before it starts to crack under pressure.
So this leaves us with a pretty clear choice, doesn't it? An authentic personality is like a true mirror, honestly reflecting the character within. But a false one, that's just a temporary mask. Sure, it might fool people for a little while, but when things get tough, it's pretty much guaranteed to break and show everyone what's really underneath.
Okay, so why should we care about any of this in our day-to-day lives? Because this link, this connection between our inner and outer selves, it isn't just some dusty philosophical idea. It directly impacts our ability to succeed and to create anything meaningful.
And that brings us to a really fascinating question. I want you to actually think about this for a second. Can someone with a, let's say, bad character, someone who's fundamentally dishonest or unreliable, can they truly produce excellent, lasting work? Well, the source gives us a pretty powerful answer with this quote from M. Mackenzie's A Manual of Ethics. The core idea here is that no matter how talented or skilled a person is, their work will always be stamped with the imprint of their character. You just can't separate the creator from the creation. It's impossible. Let's really break that down. Look, skill is just about execution, right? It can make something look beautiful on the surface, but it's your character that determines the work's real, final outcome. Any flaw in the creator, laziness, dishonesty, a lack of integrity, that's going to show up as a flaw in the final product. It's inevitable. Okay, so if we agree that a strong character is the bedrock of a successful life, then the most important question is obvious. How in the world do we build one? So for our final section, we're shifting from theory to a practical guide for doing exactly that.
The very first and honestly, the most crucial step is a total shift in focus. Real progress doesn't come from changing your job or moving to a new city or getting likes on social media. It comes from looking inward and working on the very thing that drives all your actions, your character.
This whole path starts with having the courage to look inward and just be honest with yourself. The next step is to actively work on correcting the flaws and weaknesses you find there. From there, you start to organize your inner world so you can finally move forward, not by luck or on a whim, but with a real, solid, firm resolve.
And what are we even looking for when we look inside? What are we trying to fix? Well, the source points to a few key signs of an undeveloped character. These are the things that really hold us back. That impatience that makes us quit too soon. That instability that has us changing our minds every 5 minutes. Living in a state of chaos. And this is a big one, the tendency to just copy what others are doing instead of building our own deep convictions.
Ultimately, this whole process redefines what success even is. It's not about the fancy car or getting a round of applause. True, lasting progress is found when you build an inner state of self-dignity and integrity. When you become a person that you can respect from the inside out. And so, we end by turning this whole question right back to you. After everything we've talked about, just take a quiet moment and think about it. If your behavior is the ultimate proof, if it's the mirror of your inner self, what does yours say about your character?